Alright, so Modern Horizons 3 is coming to Arena. And I'm sodden terrified because I think this might be the end of my time playing Historic. And, well, that's the only format really, because I don't play Timeless because it's just show and tell meta. For those you don't know, the special guest cards, which will be included in Modern Horizons 3 on Arena, include Expressive Iteration, Fortnite Seer, Persist, Dismember, Prismatic Ending, and the 5 Pitch Elementals. These are the cards that for me destroyed Modern. Because, long story short, the first Modern Horizons came out, and it did an okay job, and the free spells were very much designed as the Force of cycle. So the Force cycle, which was Force of Negation, Force of Vigor, Force of Slaughter, Force of Valor, and Force of something else. They were all designed around something restrictive. It was instant sorceries and enchantments that did something proactive for the color. Blue was a counterspell, which, yeah, it was too good, probably shouldn't be in the format, blah blah blah. Green was artifact and enchantment destruction. Red was hasty creatures for damage. White was an anthem to pump your weenie creatures, and black was a kill spell. Now, all of those were pretty decent, but then we came to Modern Horizons 2 and we got the elemental cycle you see here. Each of these had an evoke that you could exile a red card or exile a card of the color from your hand, and they would ETB, which would then give you their ETB trigger. So, for those who don't know, Solitude is exile creature, it's Swords to Plowshares. Subtlety is bounce any spell back on top of its opponent's deck, or the top or bottom, depending on what the owner wants. It doesn't counter, so it stops uncounterable shenanigans. Grief is a Fort Seize. Fury is 4 damage divided as you choose among any 4 creatures, and Endurance is a Graveyard Shuffle in. Now, here's the deal. All of these, you'll notice the difference. They're creatures with irrelevant type, elementals, and that was the problem. So here was the deal. Before, if you ran 4 Force of Negations, you would then be like, well, if I run into a humans deck or a tribal deck, I'm screwed because I'm going to have 4 Force of Negations that don't stop anything. This cycle became the, well, these have a great ETB ability, but they're also creatures which can beat down, and because of the nature, 3 of them were given flash. So they became emergency counterspells, but also great finishers. Now, for those of you who don't know as well, that pretty much ripped apart the modern metagame. Graveyard decks were destroyed because Endurance was just too good of a creature. Fury single-handedly wiped out tribal decks. They weren't even tiers 4 or 5 even more, because 4 damage divided as you choose amongst 2 lords or 4 1/1 humans just destroyed them. And doing that on like turn 1 or 2 before they gained momentum was horrible. Grief led to the reanimation strategy that literally went Grief, dead, not dead yet, bring it back, Fort Seize again. And, you know, it led to some insane shit. And Subtlety powered up Team of Rhinos and other Cascade decks, which, in my opinion, the biggest shift of this was you started to notice there wasn't as much budget Magic content, because every deck in Modern had to run these. And you notice people were coming up with these cool new decks. They're like, hey guys, I found this awesome new synergy with this obscure artifact card. So the deck is 24 lands, 20 pitch elementals, and the new card that I found that makes the deck work. And you think I'm joking, it's not even that. If you look back at deck lists at the time. Now, why do I think this is going to be a problem? Well, it's going to be horrific on Historic and Arena, because at the core, I don't like free spells. Straight up going to come out and say it. I don't think that having spells that literally go against the resource mechanic of the game and have a really relevant ability and not really a cost at all is going to be bad for the game in general. Because, let me put it this way, say that your opponent taps out and goes for something, and you're like, okay, I'm going to go for my big play burn spell here, or my big deploy, my big unanswerable threat. And it's just like, actually, I am tapped out, but I have this subtlety, so nothing you're going to ever do is resolve, and there's no nuance. There's no forcing them to tap out on the end step. There's no double deploying a threat because they'll always have the additional one, and you can't play to your outs because your outs are always going to be, oh, well, I might have an out, but if they just have a Fury in their hand, they're going to kill my creature anyway. And yes, that's a salty guy who loved playing tribal decks, and they were destroyed by this. Now, I personally think that if these go into Historic, I probably am not going to play Historic. Because this is another cycle of Mythics that we're going to need. We're still trying to get Mythics from us free-to-play players. Are still trying to get Mythics from the Outlaws bonus sheets. And now you're going to introduce another cycle of must-haves. And for those of you thinking, oh, I don't think the Elementals will be that bad. There's not going to be too much and you're going to have to pay. No, let me tell you something. You want to know something funny? Remember this deck? Omnath, 4-color Omnath. Remember this card, 4-color Omnath? Who's totally legal? This is to all colors. Also draws. Also is an elemental. Also makes mana. They're adding more fetch lands. So the funniest thing is, the deck that got Yorion banned, the Omnath 4-color pile, 90% of this deck is now legal in Historic and Timeless. And for those of you who don't know what this deck was built around, it was built around Elementals. The only thing that I really say, they're missing Ren and 6, but they even have Prismatic Ending now. They have Counterspell because Counterspell was in the Mystical Archives. They have Growth Spiral for that. They have Supreme Verdict. We don't have Bring to Light, ironically, because Bring to Light still isn't on the client. And also, something that a lot of people have forgotten, this card is still legal on Timeless and Historic. And for those of you who don't realize, this opening the cards counts as casting the cards. So, unironically, up the beanstalk, we'll see you pitch something to cast your Solitude and replace the card you lost, making Solitude basically net neutral. Now, what do I think will happen here? I think that we will just be flooded with Omnath, Elemental, Evoke, Beanstalk decks, and I think we could be in a situation where where Yorion's going to be in trouble again. Although they can't give the BS excuse about shuffling an 80-card deck on a digital client. Yes, but that's my ode to it. I think, honestly, these Elementals will probably kill Historic if they are allowed to be in Historic. Now, this might age terribly, and in 2 days after they're released, the Arena clients will go, actually, no, we're going to ban them from Historic because they're not that. They're too much there. But yeah, honestly, I really hope that something doesn't let these into Historic. Please, Wizards, I don't want to lose another format I love because you wanted to push these mistake cards. And I'm sorry if you like these cards. They are cool. They're very interesting. But yeah, these cards have killed Modern for a lot of players. Please don't let them kill half your Arena clients. Half your Arena formats.